My name is Kyler Ford, and I'm the head of growth at Imaginnovate and Logistics Studio. And it's my pleasure today to be the moderator for this webinar as we talk about the partnership between IBM and Imaginnovate and around the topic of revolutionizing logistics and supply chain with IBM Watsonx.AI. Over the next 45 minutes to an hour, we're going to go over several topics, a lot of information regarding Watsonx.AI, its capabilities, the ability to integrate it to your organization. And luckily, we have some great expertise to walk us through it along the way. To set the stage, the agenda for today is we're going to go through an introduction of speakers around the topic and the abstract. We'll give a brief introduction on Imaginnovate, its history and its expertise in supply chain and transportation and logistics. We'll have the pleasure of having Collin speak on IBM Watsonx.AI service offerings, its complete capabilities as a product, and all the value propositions that lead themselves very nicely to supply chain and logistics customers. We'll finish it off with a little bit of a birds of a feather discussion with Ravi and the use cases that we've been using IBM Watsonx.AI for. And we'll cap it off with some Q&A. So I'll invite everyone. You'll see in the Zoom the opportunity to ask questions. So please take advantage of that capability. And as they're going along, please fulfill to put those in. And we'll have each of the members on the panel take a look at those, and we'll address those at the end. But we're really looking for feedback as we talk about a lot of these use cases and opportunities to leverage Watsonx.AI in your organization. So without any further ado, the great speakers on this panel today, first off is Collin Stiffler. Thank you for being here. He's the AI solution architect for IBM and a great partner with us here at Imaginnovate and Logistics Studio. Kastury is our director of pre-sales at Imaginnovate. Sai has a long history of being in technology and in the industry around partnerships with great people like IBM, and looking forward to him talking more about that today. Our CTO, Ravi Chavali, will also give us more of a deep dive into the technology capabilities that exist within our organization relative to the customers we work with, but also how to bring to light the Watsonx.AI technology capabilities that have really helped so many organizations level up and do things that they weren't able to do before. And lastly, myself will be palling along with each of these folks to talk about how we kind of connect the dots between the partnerships and the systems and your organization, and how we help you meet in the middle. To kick things off, a brief introduction of Imaginnovate and Logistics Studio. The organization has been around for over 17 years with locations throughout the United States and in India, providing solutions and services only to supply chain, transportation, and logistics companies. That is our niche, and we are experts in this space, providing day-to-day operational efficiencies through solutions and integrated partnerships with great technologies such as Watsonx.AI, as well as our own custom development opportunities that we work with companies on. Our uniqueness really is around our ability to be technology agnostic and really a solutions provider. We work with folks to really understand their technology stack, their roadmap capabilities, and help implement solutions that quickly and effectively address those. Whether that's, whether you're an asset company, a non-asset company, a shipper, a carrier, it doesn't matter. But our expertise is all around those areas of business, and everyone in our organization, when brought on to the organization, is leveled up and educated on the processes that exist within your organizations. This helps us really be fast, effective, and allow us to use cutting-edge technology to solve complex problems in a really quick and effective way. We work mutually with you guys and our customers as a true partnership, because that's what we believe is really effective in delivering real results. And we're always looking for the next innovative way and kind of edge, such as we'll talk today, to bring to light a lot of the things that you're trying to accomplish with less, but empowering your people to do more. A quick overview of what that looks like from end-to-end transportation and logistics optimization. And there's far more than this, but it kind of gives you an easy understanding within what we do relative to automations, relative to AI tools, which we're going to talk about today, and that's the main focus on this webinar. But not to forget RPA tools and reg and fleet operations that we do with many of our organizations, from some of the largest providers in supply chain in North America and around the world, all the way down to folks who are a little bit more small and nimble. It kind of works with all of these organizations, as well as some of the superset interactive dashboards and insights that we provide across the board. So we're really flexible in nature. Our ability to have an understanding in all of these is really helpful to the folks that we work with, and we're looking forward to talking to you more about these things as we go along in the webinar. I'm going to turn it over this time to Sai to talk a little bit about our unique partnership with IBM and TD SYNNEX. And Sai, take it away.
Thank you, Kyler. This is Sai Kastury, and I head the pre-sales division in Imaginnovate. Like Kyler mentioned, Imaginnovate is a global systems integrator, which is in the industry over the last 17 years. We focus around the supply chain, logistics, and transportation industry. That's our core industry vertical. We provide horizontal technology solutions across data, AI, and automation. We are IBM's existing silver partner, and then a value-added, our value-added distributor is TD SYNNEX. We offer IBM-specific solutions in and around AI, automation, with very niche service offerings, exclusively within the IBM Watsonx.AI, data, orchestrate, discovery, along with the supply chain intelligence suite of solutions, within the spectrum of the Sterling B2B, be it on the SaaS or on the on-premise. Imaginnovate has a worldwide 3 different data centers that operate 24/7 within US and India. And that's where our core center of excellence and lab services department continuously work on, proof of concepts, pilots, re-engineering, work with customers with their specific business use cases. And, where with our, certified software engineering consultants around AI and automation. Imaginnovate is also, proudly we can say that we are partnered with IBM and TD SYNNEX with their innovation centers back in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida, Dallas, Texas. Then there is New York and Washington, D.C., along with that Alameda in Silicon Valley. What we get, in participating with the innovation studios of the IBM and TD SYNNEX is first-hand information of industry use cases and hands-on expertise with the hardware, with the software applications that are running. And you being the customer, you can travel in person. We can take you over there to be able to build and customize the package solutions within AI and automation, or you can connect to through a remote connectivity to those applications where you can see how these applications are running, integrating with some of your existing applications. So that is something that we do it in day in and day out, and that's where we are and how we are doing. If you have certain use cases, certain business use cases, feel free to share with us, and then we can certainly work with IBM and TD SYNNEX and take you to the next level. With that being said, I would welcome Collin Stiffler, who's the AI solution architect from IBM. Over to you, Collin.
Thanks, Sai. Hey, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about Watsonx and specifically Watsonx.AI. We're going to go over some different features of Watsonx.AI and then get into some use cases. So, start off, there's been a tremendous amount of growth around generative AI. And here, Gartner predicts that by 2028, a third of all generative AI interactions are going to go through action models and autonomous agents. And this growth is going to found and make 1 billion net new applications by 2028. And all the top performing CEOs say this is where their competitive advantage rests. However, there's a few pain points today. So 72% of developers say they use between 5 and 15 different tools to create an AI application. Not only that, but 80% of the engineering workforce is going to have to upskill and learn how to work with generative AI and build with generative AI by 2027 to remain relevant. And also there's an increased risk. So 42% of developers don't trust the accuracy of different generative AI tool outputs. And this is exactly why we built Watsonx, which is a portfolio of AI products to help get generative AI running for your business. So there's a few different pieces to this. There is Watsonx.AI, which is our enterprise-grade AI studio, which we'll talk about a little bit more today. Then there's Watsonx Data, which is our hybrid open data lakehouse, as well as Watsonx Governance, which is a AI governance and risk and compliance tool to view your AI applications and monitor them throughout their entire life cycle. And then we also have Watsonx Orchestrate, which is all about assistants and agents and deploying those, as well as Watsonx Code Assistant, which is all about application development, application modernization, and IT operations. But today we're going to be looking at Watsonx AI. So these are just a few of the features that we're going to be looking at today. And yeah. So to start off with model selection. So Watsonx AI hosts a variety of both IBM built and third-party models. So you can see some of the meta models in here, Granite, which is IBM's. And the benefit of this is that no large language model really fits every single use case. So you're able to pick different models that may be smaller and cheaper to run to fit your use case here, and then use a different larger model for a different use case that you may have. And then we also have our own IBM Granite models, and these are a ton of open source models. And what's unique about these is we actually give everybody the data of what we train these on. So there's no surprises in there. You can look it up and see every single bit of information in there. And because of that, we're able to actually offer IP indemnification. So these are really a business set of models fit for specific use cases. And then here, we also have a few different ways to customize your model. So here is where you can add in information about your business and give a large language model knowledge about your business so it can answer in the way that you want it to. So we have 3 different ways here, and that's through InstructLab, prompt tuning, and then also fine tuning. And then what I think is important is right now everybody gets caught up with generative AI must be the answer to everything. However, a lot of use cases, or at least a part of it, traditional machine learning is just as important as generative AI. So in Watsonx AI, we also have the ability to build and deploy traditional machine learning models with low and no code tools here as well. And then also we have this agent builder in Watsonx AI. So most of our agent stuff is done in Watsonx Orchestrate. However, we do have this builder here. So you're actually able to add different tools to a large language model. So you can see here that we have tools such as a web search or a document search or a Python code executor. So here you can add a few different ones, create your own tools, add them in. And then you're actually able to deploy this and integrate it into any of your applications or wherever you want it to live right from here. And then also, this is Watsonx Governance. It ties in very closely with Watsonx AI. It's a lifecycle tool to help you track your machine learning and generative AI models. So if you look at the right side here, you actually can see that we have different tab AI models by provider. That's because we can actually govern third-party models as well. So, I mean, if you're not using our AI, that's okay. You can still govern it with Watsonx Governance and be able to track it throughout the entire life cycle. And here I like to show this slide. This is just a few common use cases for large language models. So if you look on the left-hand side, we have summarization, which is a pretty popular one. So this is just summarizing large documents or different conversations. And then we also have extraction. So extraction, you could feed it a 10K filing and pull out a specific set of information that you want from the document, and you can have that returned to you. And then we also have generation, so actually generating text. So the most common use case that we see here is a lot of emails, tying it in and automatically create an email that you can review before you send it. And then also classification. So this is good for like customer reviews. So if you're looking through your customer reviews, you can categorize, oh, hey, we have a lot of issues with our customer service. We should take a look at that. And then also one of the most popular ones is question answering. So this is using, most of the time uses the RAG format that we talked about earlier. So you feed it a document from your company and ask questions, and it'll go search the document and then answer that question based on whatever information that you actually fed it. And then here is just a few different areas of business that we tend to see customers start off in. So I'll highlight a few here. So HR automation is a huge one. We'll talk about that in a second, actually. We have marketing, content creation, supply chain, procurement, and a few other ones in here as well. And then now we're going to go over a few different client stories. On this side, I want to focus on the IBM on the right side and talk about our Ask HR chatbot. So we actually have, using Watsonx Orchestrate, an agent deployed for IBM employees that we're actually able to go ask all of our HR-related inquiries to. So some of that is questions about vacation time, questions about onboarding employees, transfer employees, and there's a few other use cases there. And then here's an example from Dun & Bradstreet. So this, we actually introduced a D&B procurement agent that allows customers to run supplier risk evaluations, avoid fraud. And this led to a great decrease in time for their average procurement tasks. And then we also have this one with IBM and Tricon. So Tricon is a steamship agency putting ships down the Mississippi River. And so they had an issue and came to us that they were spending too much time doing monotonous tasks every single day. So in this instance, they were just filling out forms every time they picked something up, and they would just take them forever to fill out those forms manually. So the solution to that was to introduce Watsonx Orchestrate and take that manual forms and make that automatic. So you can see the results here from an average of 4 hours to fill out those forms. We were able to bring that down to just 30 minutes. And so with that extra saving of time, their agents over at Tricon were able to focus on more higher value tasks than just forms. And so they went and focused on account settlement. And so they were able to bring down their account settlement from 30 to 60 days down to just 7 days. So this is a huge decrease. That's all the use cases I'm going to show you today. There's thousands of them. Anything that you think may be a use case for generative AI probably is, and somebody's probably done it. And you can view more of these if you go to ibm.com/client stories or case studies. And feel free to reach out if you have anything that you have a question about. And now I will pass it off to Collin.
Thanks, Collin. That was terrific. I think there's a ton of great information in there for folks to digest, and in the sake of time, we couldn't dive into all of it as deep as we'd all like, but I think this gave everyone a clear understanding that there is a ton of opportunity to leverage Watsonx.AI as well as some of the other great tools in the IBM portfolio to really help those folks, give them some use cases like we just saw here. Looking forward to talking about it more. So what we wanted to do based on all the information that Collin just went through was give the folks that are in the supply chain sector and whether you're, in the asset, non-asset side or a shipper, it doesn't matter. But really wanted to look like what it looks like in action and talk about that a little more in detail so people will have a clear idea of what their first steps may be, or maybe they're farther along the lines of implementing AI at their organization and they want to just have some checks and balances to see what other use cases might be relevant to them. So we're going to take some time, Ravi and I, going over some questions that we fielded from customers and folks in the industry of different levels of sophistication relative to their AI understanding. So we could kind of walk folks through what some of the common maybe resistant questions or curious questions they may have as they're learning more about this. So Ravi, as we talked about, with lots of our customers, I think the biggest thing to understand is kind of why, in this case, we're going to talk about agent AI or agentic AI. Why would folks think of this as something they could implement and it would be helpful. Maybe give them kind of the higher entry level idea of where they play into, their success as an organization.
Hey, Kyler. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about agents, right, one of the most important thing is the agents have a specific scope. And when you have clearly defined the scope, it really ensures that the process can be done in an efficient manner. When these repeatable processes come into play, you're in general, when you're actually trying to work through a system, it's not like I only have to check one place. There are multiple things that a user has to do in order to make a business decision. So being able to connect all these disparate systems and get a response back in a timely fashion, what it does is it gives you operational efficiency, accuracy, and also timeliness with respect to the job at hand.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think where we get a lot of folks in conversation is that sounds like really helpful and kind of conceptually makes a lot of sense. But how does it work technically speaking?
Yeah, so the agents that we talk about here, right? When the request comes in from the user, first step of the process is, hey, let's understand the context of what the user is asking, and then it has these different tools at its disposal depending on the use case. You could go to RAG, like Collin mentioned earlier. It could be a relational data store where the information is captured. It could be a cache file somewhere else, right? So any of those, it makes the decision in terms of where is the information that I need to grab from. Once that comes back, then we ingest a set of validations to make sure it's no hallucination. It's actually the data is relevant and all of that. And then once those validations happen, the information is displayed back to the user or fed to a workflow wherein the next step of the process kicks in. It all depends on the type of workflow, but essentially those are the sequence of steps that happen.
So we have a good understanding of maybe why and kind of how now, and then now it's more about where does this agent sit or live in terms of usability? How do people get to it? How do they interact with it on a day-to-day that makes it pretty seamless to their already existing workflow?
Oh, yeah, this is a interesting question because it's like horses for courses, right? Every company is different. So, the customers some of the customers that we worked at, they said, hey, I want it integrated in my application itself. Others have said, I want it as a separate component that I can access whenever I need to, right? So it really depends on how they intend to use it, and we have the ability to provide it in a way that can be utilized the best possible way.
Okay, that makes sense. And we talked to a lot of folks that want to analyze large amounts of data or solve a complex problem. What if they're looking to do that? How do they take advantage of the capabilities?
Yeah, this question is very interesting and also commonplace, right? Given uh, when we are talking about chatbots, we always talk about, hey, I need to get data from the system. And when you give this to the user, inadvertently, what happens is he's going to ask a question that's going to be maybe 5 years worth of data, grab it and display it. And the same user also could come back and say, hey, the chatbot isn't giving me the response right away. This agent isn't working. I have to wait for the response and all. So what we did was in scenarios like this, we built asynchronous queues to make sure that the requests are funneled through, and then the user can still continue to talk with the chat, agent, and make sure he's able to get the responses he needs. While in the background, it's running, gathering the information, it provides a notification to him, and also sends an automated email with the information that he's requested.
And this one
Does that
kind of
make
plays along
sense?
with that, but yeah, that makes absolute sense. What is the max capacity of this kind of inquiry and what and how is it managed from technically speaking? I know we get that question every so often.
Yeah, this is another one where, in this day and age, when we are talking about quantum computing and all of that, we're like, hey, why can't we just scale up and service everybody at the same time? Yes, you can, but also there's a cost associated with it, right? So that's when I think, we've seen scenarios where I've talked to customers and we said, we're going to give access to X number of requests per user. or large volumes of data, access and all, and there are parameters to identify them readily. So you can know, hey, this bucket is falls under. So the limit, count limit, and make sure that they're feeding those numbers. Also, there are scenarios where customers have said, hey, scale this up to X number of servers. Beyond that, don't service the request and handle it that way. And some others have said queuing is the best way to do it. We'll process the request. I don't need the response instantaneously, but as long as my request is served, I get the response, I'm good with it. So it all depends on customer needs, and absolutely the technology is there to scale up and deliver whatever is needed.
Makes sense. The other side of this is we can get answers, right? And we get those pretty quickly, leveraging this technology, but it's not always how you need to visualize the data, right? It's just answers to text that you put out. How does one of these agents bring this data more to life to make it more kind of living and breathing and easier for folks to look at and understand?
Yeah, I'll give you a few examples here, right? First one is, obviously you'll see a demo also a little later about this, but the intent is the agents are, they have a specific, like we talked about, scope, right? Once you've defined the scope for the agent, then you can say how what sort of information they can provide back to the user. And this, like, for example, there's a use case where if you are a 3PL, you go to a load board, you're getting requests from the customers to say, hey, these are all the loads. Do you want to service them? You can submit your code, so on and so forth. So as soon as that email comes in, you should be able to automatically process that. And yes, AI can do that. You're able to extract that using Watsonx.AI. Once that is there, then the next step for you is go to these, green screens or DAT, and then get the average rate for this particular truck type, for this origin, for this destination, so on and so forth, right? So you grab that information. And then also you need to check if you have carrier availability, if you have drivers available for this route. And lastly, if nothing is available, then, hey, is there a third party that can service the same for me? When you're discussing and interacting with so many systems, it can be a little time consuming. And what we do with these agents is they're able to interact with all these systems and are able to gather all the information displayed as one place so that you can respond back to this request right away. Another example that I want to talk about is, and you'll see this in action, is people talk a lot about, hey, I need reporting. I need to understand my data. I need to understand where things are right, where things are wrong. What normally happens is when I meet one customer versus the other, the request is similar, but the data they want is not. The aggregation or summarization they want is different. So when you're trying to service multiple customers, it takes at least a 1 or 2 days to be able to turn that around, give them the data that they're looking for them to analyze and make the decision. But with Watsonx.AI, what we will showcase is called analytics on the fly. You're able to ask a question. It is not only able to extract the information and display it, but it also creates visualizations on the fly and reports so that you can download, you can process them, and then make business decisions right away.
I love that. Thanks for the clarity there. I think that helps bring it to life a lot more for folks on this, and a lot of the questions that I get and we get on a weekly and daily basis. So kind of the last question that we had here that was important amongst pretty much everyone we talked to was, who has access to what information and when, right? I think usability and permissions and those types of things have always been important in whatever platform you're using, but maybe now more than ever, when we're able to pool information from different components internally and externally, right? So maybe give some ideas of who has access to what and how we go about monitoring that.
Yeah, kind of. I'd say all these questions are relevant and important, but I'll say at least 10 CEOs have asked me this question. They do not want people who don't have access to be able to see the data. And that's very critical, right? Making sure that permissions are applied at the right level. So what we do is we do 2 levels of validations. First one is at the organization level. Do you have access to the organization itself? Once that check is passed, The second step that we do is we also categorize users into domains and understand if this particular question is relevant to that domain. If yes, then the user gets access. Lastly, when especially when you're talking about these agents, right? Users, when they log in, they're already permissioned. But after that, they may ask a different question and all. So what we do is for every question, we validate that the user has the privileges for this context and then only display this information. When they actually saw this in action, they were really excited and they said, yeah, this makes sense. This is how we want systems to be.
Excellent. And it kind of piggybacks on one other point that is not on this list, but Collin mentioned earlier about governance, and we get that a lot more recently than ever, with really mature organizations around having some controls of what is being done and what is being searched for, and that type of thing to make sure that it's within what the company or organization desires, right? And I think correct me if I'm wrong, Collin, but IBM is one of the only ones that I'm aware of that has a really formalized process for this within governance, and we think that's been really critical to our partnership and leveraging Watsonx.AI. So, all right, we're going to move on. The next component of this is a little bit talk about some exact supply chain use cases. So this slide could definitely be more robust, but we kind of went with some simple ones relative to carriers and logistics providers, simply because the availability for information is at your fingertips when this is implemented correctly. So use cases such as billing information, where an invoice or an amount that is lost or been sent differently, or you're looking for it to reconcile, or you have other payment back office automation stuff that's going on, whatever the use case is. You leverage a lot of the same stuff that Collin mentioned that IBM uses internally for asking HR. You're able to ask other components of your business, such as billing, to ask a particular invoice number, or ask about a different route or customer. And all that information is readily available at your fingertips. If you're asking a carrier rep about a lane or a carrier that they've used in the past or some historical information, you can ask the system that and integrates with all the data within your TMS and other systems and pulls that at your fingertips so you can make an informed decision relative to those things. And that combines well with pricing. Pricing is a big deal all the way around, from the shipper side, the carrier side, and non-asset side. And relevant to what Ravi was talking about, to integrated pricing partnerships, you also have historical data and other areas that you might need to reference for dynamic pricing or intelligent pricing, as we call it. This is all readily available when implementing a solution like this, and all the way to load board access internally. If you've got things that have been automated and put on from email and other external sources into your own internal load board, you can also ask, which one's been fulfilled, which ones are pending, which ones have certain time requirements or other specific requirements they might want to be aware of. And then we kind of also made sure we added in folks that have assets on the road and ways to ask safety relative to upcoming events that may be problematic for the fleet. Other detailed information relative to DOT, which complies itself really with the ask compliance component as well. If a dispatcher needs to know where a driver is at a given point in a day, or what they might be carrying, or a customer they may be interacting with, historically you'd have to pull up multiple dashboards, might have to sort and filter, may have to go individually into a dispatch system that is not integrated to your telematics system, whatever the case may be. But to be able to pull those disparate systems together and ask that dispatcher to get that answer for someone in operations or elsewhere in the organization really makes it, cuts down a lot of steps and takes away that time waste that you normally would have. And then the last one here is kind of neat too, is ask management. So if there's something that you might need other information for that you otherwise would have to email or call, this gives you a direct line, again, back to Ravi's permissions standpoint, but makes it accessible for folks to get answers quickly that they might otherwise be backed up on for hours or days, depending on schedules within management and or availability to make decisions, again, accurately and timely. Having all of these components at your fingertips really helps enable the productivity of the organization. So we talked about a lot of things conceptually. We gave you a lot of ideas here for examples, but we definitely are fond of something here at Imaginnovate and Logistics Studio, which is to kind of make things happen and put them in action. So we provide real solutions and services to our customers. So we put together a quick video today of some of this in action, and Ravi's going to take us through it. To set the stage, Ravi, do you want to, before we begin, kind of give everyone a little idea of what type of AI components are we using here in automation so they know what they're seeing?
Sure. Thanks again, Collin. Yeah, what I want to highlight here is that in this particular demo, you're going to see, on the left panel, you're going to see a data agent and a report agent. What we are essentially trying to break it down by, if you want specific questions on your data, you could go to the data agent. And if you want to generate a report on the fly, you're able to do that using report agent, right? But additionally, what I want to highlight is that this can be your dispatch agent, billing agent, driver agent, management agent, so on and so forth. So each agent has a specific context and it can answer questions in that subject area. The other thing that you could also do is, like Collin mentioned, there are disparate systems out there, whether it's as part of a 3PL, you want to interact with the carrier management system, you want to interact with the shipper management system or a compliance. All of those can be separate agents that users can interact with and make decisions by interacting with them. Also, before Kyler kicks this off, you see on the right side, you see that admin is logging in, which means he has privileges to ask for any data in the system. Okay. Lastly, I'll mention that it's not just the agents that we're calling. Also look at the features and functions that are being provided in terms of visualizations to be able to present that on the fly, that the user can consume, download, act on it. Hello? So yeah, Chris is logging into the system. Once he logs in, he wants to understand the total revenue in 2025. So, the system gave him a response, and then he's now curious about, hey, can you break this down? What this tells you is it maintains context between questions and is able to understand this is what the user is asking. Now here, it's not just an image. He's able to slice and dice the data based on, by clicking on it. He's asking the next question in terms of, how many orders are created in 2025. So he's gotten the response. Now he's digging further. This time, he's broken that down further by month and warehouse. Now look at this. In this one screen, now the user has ability to interactively, filter out certain data, understand and analyze the data, and also download this information and share it. All those features are available for the user right there on the fly. This is something that when we shared it with the customer, what they realized is that for certain types of orders, they're not even assigning a driver. That's why there's about 3,800 orders that were delivered by default driver. So they address that in the system. And that's how this data analysis can help you dive into it. Now you see on the left side, it now moved on to the report agent. Now the user is asking to generate a report. Look at this. When he's asked for a question on the daily revenue, actually, this was something that we did for a customer on the fly when he said, hey, I want to look at the revenue. And then he had actually manually done this calculation. So he was comparing the numbers. He's like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. I spent 3 hours to do this. You guys got it to me right here. So that's how these are live examples that can help productivity and drive decision making that much easier. Now, the features that we've added is to make sure that the user can filter, sort, download, do all those things. And also the amount of data that comes through this can be quite large also, right? So being able to provide the user the ability to download as much data as they want to be able to do their analysis. Here, if you see, he's asked a question based on a particular date range. And again, he's going to be able to sort the data, filter it, download. All options are available for the user. So imagine that I don't have to go to somebody to actually generate or understand the data that I need to understand. Now here I'm showcasing a specific scenario wherein a dispatcher goes in and then he's asking for the revenue. Dispatcher shouldn't get revenue details. So the system says, hey, you don't have access to this data. Please talk to your admin, right? But then, these cheeky people can also work around that. They say, hey, how many orders are there in 2025, which is relevant for the dispatch subject area. So it gave them the response. So what this is highlighting to you is the context is validated every single time to make sure that the user can only see the information that is relevant to him. Again, here we are only showing you based on data access, but imagine that there's an exception in the system. You're a TMS and you delivered an item to a customer, but then the customer said, no, I don't want to take this item. Then immediately, as soon as an exception is generated, maybe the workflow says that contact the shipper on the next steps. So the agent that we're going to deploy is going to call the shipper, get the response back, and display it back to the driver on his phone. And he says, oh, the shipper said, leave it at the doorstep. Then quickly he makes action, he documents that, takes a picture, and moves on. So that's how AI agents can help streamline your process every step of the way.
Excellent. Thanks, Ravi. That was great. So a couple other use cases. We talked about agents there, and Ravi gave us a good example of those. But outside of that, there's also some really other good use cases for AI relative to document processing, for one. In this, there's a seamless document upload automation opportunity for a lot of folks who are still doing that manually. I know there's some other systems out there that folks have historically used, but when deployed, this is a great use case for understanding data extraction and the ability of the user to pick and choose what they want to extract, a super flexible system for data routing across a system. So it can capture and pass the information to any location. It also can apply custom rules to identify errors and customizations that folks can then go back and not have to address someone specifically to fill in, but it's highlighted very easily for them and sent it back automatically to the user so they can make corrections. It runs automatically, obviously, at 24/7, 365, that it's always pulling and ingesting information relative to the document. The other piece is that it can understand kind of which needs to go where at any given time, and we'll talk about that a little bit relative to email as well. But a really common use case for all sorts of documents and templates that can be customized and ingested using this technology. And then email automation is talked a lot about in the transportation and logistics space specifically over the last year, 2 or 3. We've been doing email automation here at our organization for a long time with several large customers. And because of it, we've made it really easy for others to adapt and utilize the processes as well. Through Outlook and Google integrations for add-ons that are easily obtainable and implemented throughout your organization. Also helps create and separate and bucket emails to where they need to go. So there's a lot of large organizations and emails going to the wrong places relative to billing or other information that they're looking for. And rather than them go to about or info emails, they're routed accordingly to the right department so they can be handled effectively and in a timely manner. From that, even emails that come in relative to load information are able to be quoted and automatically responded to. We see that obviously in the brokerage world as being a common use case. The great news about those use cases is that they're very flexible and you can customize them and put restrictions on what you want to do and what not want to do with that capability so that you still feel like you have the main component, which is a strong relationship with your customers. But for the monotonous back and forth conversations, you can automate those. And a group chatbot that can also respond to other emails that come in. So the whole goal with this automation is making it timely and responsive, and ability even to go out and get information that's missed or otherwise you're still looking for, to eliminate the back and forth that your folks internally have with the customers and really superpower each of them at the organization to do more. To give you a little bit more insight on this, we've got another quick video to show you what this looks like in action with customers. Ravi, do you need to give some highlights here on kind of what the folks are going to see?
Yeah. Obviously, due to this being a limited time demo, right, we couldn't cover every aspect, but I want to reiterate what Kyler highlighted, which is, these AI agents or integrations that we set up, you're able to automate data extraction as well as classification, which means that any document that comes in, right, you first want to classify it, make sure I understand it's a bill of lading, BOL, or a customer document, or a notification, right? Any of those, once you're able to identify it, obviously each document type has specific attributes that need to be extracted. But what we understood working with our customers is that from within the same document itself, from customer to customer, the information that is shared is different. There are synonyms that need to be mapped. There are attributes that needs to be changed from one to the other. All of those is possible by using classification extraction models that we're going to showcase here. Yeah, if you click on that. So here, the user is uploading a document. So once the document on the left side you see, and it's classified the document as BOL, but the user also has the ability to say, this is the additional attribute I want you to capture here. Once this is documented by the user, what we do is we train the model to make sure that if it is this document from this customer, this is an additional attribute that needs to be picked up. And on the left side, you see this search capability. On the right side, what you see is if there is certain information that needs to be overridden or default values need to be provided, the user can provide those details, and on subsequent runs, that information is extracted and processed. What this can feed to is not just, hey, this is done, move on to the next step, right? If it is part of your workflow, you can integrate it to part of the workflow. If this data needs to be uploaded to a system, that can be done. Or if it goes to the database or needs to make an API call, any of those integrations are possible. And once the user has customized this, he doesn't have to change anything, and it will extract the information relevant to his document.
Excellent. Well, Ravi, thank you for that great overview and giving the folks on the webinar some ideas of what this looks like in real life. And I think, our goal today was to show that these capabilities you can utilize at any size organization. My hope always when working with people is it really doesn't matter your size. It's more about your appetite for implementing things like this, because you have a goal to really streamline all of the efficiencies that you want to have at your organization and give your folks, all the tool set that they can be the most effective. This is definitely something that's, talked about at pretty much every conference and trade show and webinar that we've seen in the most, last several months. And, here our focus at Imaginnovate and Logistics Studio is to partner continuously with the folks that are bringing the best technology to market, such as IBM and Watsonx.AI, to make sure that when you're trying to solve complex problems, you feel like you have a real true expert in the space to understand them. I know we asked folks during this webinar to make sure they ask for Q&A and to provide some questions. So taking a look at some of those, and I think one of the questions that came in was, what is your experience with SMB freight brokers as a client? I'll take that one, I guess, for Imaginnovate, and Rob, you can jump on too. We have tremendous experience with working with freight brokers of any size. We've worked with startup brokerages all the way to some of the largest in the world. And again, each of these use cases, as Ravi mentioned, similar in nature, are definitely different depending upon each of the organizations out there and the customers that they service. So the flexibility that we have and then kind of our innate knowledge as experts in the space really helps empower those with lots of resources and also those with minimal resources. And I think our interaction and partnership with IBM and Collin's team has shown that it's a variety, and it's a really large range of folks that we know are growing and the smaller SMB level all the way up to, the folks who've been around for a long time in the large enterprise space. Another question here. How do you choose between IBM's proprietary models and open source LLMs like Llama or Mixtral when building domain-specific agentic applications for clients? Ravi, do you want to take that one, or even Collin can jump in on that?
Yeah, Collin, please add in. So whenever we are testing a model, what we do is we take the data, we collect the data from the user, we understand the use case and the expected output, and we test the model we test the output on different models. Once we are able to understand that, we obviously there are parameters that you play with. Once you play with the parameters, then you figure out, oh, this is what makes sense, and based on that, you make a decision. There is a cost factor, but not beyond the first comes the output, consistency, and build test on that.
Awesome. Collin, you want to add anything there, just relative to each of those, or any other input?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the use case. So really trying to find the smallest model that's performant enough for your use case. That way it's the cheapest to your customers. And it just kind of depends there. So
excellent. And Rajan, thank you for fielding some of these from different folks. This one says, in the supply chain automation framework, how does Watsonx orchestrate AI agents to interact across tools like OCR, Power Automate, and UiPath and cohesive workflow? So kind of other use cases there. Ravi, do you want to answer that one, or Collin?
yeah, I can answer that one. So within Orchestrate, there's a catalog of hundreds of pre-built tools that go into different connectors. And then you also have the ability to bring your own tools through an open API script, or also integrate, third-party or external agents that may be sitting somewhere else or that you've built in the background. And it can act as the orchestrator agent to determine when to call those tools or when to call those other agents as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it looks like we are getting close to time. Is there anything? I don't think there's any other questions that have come in yet. I'll wait a second more. But really wanted to just thank everyone on this panel for being here. It's been super helpful, I know, from our team to listen through the IBM use cases relative to supply chain as we work with lots of different organizations in our continued partnership. And also wanted to make it aware that if there's other folks on the webinar today, or we'll be sharing this recording out as well, that want to get in touch with us, we've included our contact information here, both email and phone number. As mentioned, our headquarters is in Bentonville, Arkansas, but we have offices around the country. Would love to find time to meet with you in person, or over a Zoom call to talk through your use cases, so we can bring in the necessary folks both on our team as well as the IBM team to really build out some of these POCs and use cases to better serve your organization. So on behalf of Collin and Ravi and Sai, thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to listen in today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you, team. Thank you, Collin. Ravi, thank you. Sai, thank you for being a part of this. This was great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.